Hello, my name is Allison Carmen, and welcome to my podcast, 10 Minutes to Less Suffering. Today, I want to talk to you about creating stillness when the world around us feels so chaotic. You listen to your friends, you turn on the TV, you see what's going on in the political landscape. Sometimes it feels like there's just a tornado going around us. And how do we stay stable and still when we don't feel like we have anything to hold on to? And this thought came to me the other day. I'm back in New York City, and I have this little garden. And I had forgotten I had bought this Buddha a long time ago. And the reason why I had forgotten about it is that all these bushes had grown around it. I guess with all the chaos and the pandemic, I hadn't really taken care of the garden. And yet when I peeked over there, that Buddha looked like it always did. It was heavy and it was still and it was gray. It hadn't moved. And there were all these leaves around it and all these trees around it, but there it was in the same exact spot. And it just reminded me of what's happening today. That we can be still even with the chaos. And I think there's some quote that says the wind can't move the mountain. And that's what we need to learn how to be, that big gray Buddha or the mountain. It was so interesting too, is that I turned my head away from the Buddha, I saw this tree. And this tree blossoms with flowers in April. And it's September. Yet at the tip of one of the branches, these flowers had come out of the tree. And I thought to myself, isn't that interesting? It was almost like a miracle, an unexpected miracle that this tree would have these flowers. I don't even know if it's the same flower that comes out in April. And it's just at the tip. And then I realized that part of the reason it's hard to stay still when all the chaos is happening is because we think we know what that chaos means. Yes, it hurts in the moment, but we think we know what that means for tomorrow. Yet we forget that miracles happen and things change and we can't know. If you would have told me in April that there would be an unidentified flower on my tree, I wouldn't have believed you. But there it was. And we must remember that part of life. Because when we don't, we lose our way. And when we don't, we're not stable. And when we don't, we're not experiencing our lives in the moment, and we are not going to be available for when change does come, when the miracle comes, when the opportunity comes, when the possibility comes. We will not be awake or stable or strong enough to take that. And that's why this time is so important. It's so important that we're not sloppy, that we're not careless. And it's so important that we take better care of ourselves today than we ever had in our entire lives. And I know that's a tall ask because when life's not going the way you want, maybe you're having money troubles or job troubles or aggravation with your kids, sometimes all you want to do is just not take care of yourself and go a little crazy and wild. And that's okay sometimes, but we actually need to have more discipline now than we've ever had because the winds are stronger, because there's more chaos. It's our stability and our stillness that's going to allow us to wake up every day and do our best and try to make the changes and try to help the people around us and try to start new businesses and get new jobs and help our children. It comes from the stillness within, the stability within. And everybody feels stable in a different way. But I find it's very important to have practices in place for us to constantly be able to regroup. And there are so many different things you can do. I know some people run or they work out or they do yoga or they meditate. And if you don't have time because you're very busy, you could also look into doing walking meditations. When you clear your mind, you count your steps. You can get so many different methods on YouTube. There's this beautiful practice called Jinshin. And what I love about that is that you could do it yourself. And you place your hands on different meridians on your body and it calms you down. You could go on YouTube to learn how to do it. My friend Alexis Brink also wrote an amazing Jinshin book. You could have a gratitude journal that you write in through the day to remind you of what you do have. That's always a really good place to center, to say, where am I right now? And what's okay? Because sometimes it feels good to rest in the okayness of what's around you. And it gives you more hope and possibility to weather through the storm. And you know I love the maybe practice And I'm not going to go over it on this podcast because there are half the podcasts I've done probably have maybe in it. But I will say that you could just use a maybe mantra. Maybe everything will be okay. Maybe things will get better. Maybe I can accept this and be all right. And one of my favorite ones is maybe the thoughts I'm having right now are not true. And it just gives you a little opening and hope that this thing that's making you feel so chaotic and so crazy might not be so bad, or might pass, or might turn out differently than you're expecting. I find taking baths, salt baths, are very calming. Essential oils are very calming. Calling a friend, helping somebody, serving, always makes us feel better within. Learning, taking new classes, reading new books, having new ideas, whatever you need to do to anchor yourself into this moment. There's also this wonderful practice, which I talked about on a prior podcast, called Just for Today. You could break things down a little bit, not take on your entire life in one moment. We often do this when we feel scared and worried, like we have to fix everything at once. We forget that all we have to do is tend to the moment, tend to the day. And sometimes all I'll say during the day is just for today. Just for today, I'm going to get this done. Just for today, I'm going to just face what's in front of me, step by step, moment by moment. That's actually one of the best ways to stay still, is to stay present. Because life always changes. We forget that. We get so wrapped up in the chaos of the moment, we start to project that things will never change, they'll never get better. But new things come into our lives all the time. We forget that. We only think that change brings bad things, but we forget that we have things in our lives today that we once didn't have. But we get used to it. So we forget that that came from the unknown too. So remember, good things come from the unknown. Sometimes experiences are rocky and challenging, but doesn't mean that it can't get better. And so now is the time to take the best care of yourself and find a practice to create that stillness. So you are there and you are awake and you are ready for when your life blossoms with that beautiful flower you did not expect. And I promise you that it will. But if we get overwhelmed by the fear and the stress and the worry and the negativity, we might not even see it if it fell in front of us. Now more than ever, it is such an important time to hold the hope, to keep your heart open, to find a practice to help you stay present and strong and resilient so you can enjoy the moments that are pleasant, that are beautiful, and you can endure the chaos and the suffering. We all have a path, and we all have opportunities and possibilities. And I know it's hard when you don't see it, but I promise you it is there. And sometimes all we could do is sit still and do our best and wait. Wait for that moment to pass and a new moment to come. And in that new moment, we will see a brighter future. And we will see things getting better. And in our heart, we will know that maybe the best is yet to come. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can email me at allison@allisoncarmen.com. If you'd like to buy my book, The Gift of Maybe, it's available at all major bookstores and online retailers. And if you like this podcast, you could subscribe and leave a comment.